Hello friends, today we are going to talk about introduction to ward management. Ward management is basically the second subject of your masters in hospital administration fourth semester. So as you know, like this ward management is a very important part, and this is basically a part which is included in inpatient services or the IPD services. Now, what is a ward? And as you can see from the slide, it is basically a block which is forming a division of a hospital. Okay, you can also name it a suite. Okay, which is shared by the patients who need a similar kind of a care. So this is the operational definition of a hospital ward. Now, as you know, like all the inpatient services include the ward and the nursing station, and these are all utmost necessary for giving a good patient care and to provide care which is under the direct supervision of the patient at the point of illness. It requires that the patient should be admitted in a hospital bed, and henceforth the ward is required. So the what are the broad objectives of the inpatient services? The broad objectives are that we require to provide the highest level of care, and which has to be a quality care for the admitted patient. Second one is, as you know, like all these wards are being well equipped with the important drugs, equipments, because these things are not being available at home, and henceforth, guided care or specialized care can be given to the admitted patient, which is also known as organized care. Then the comfortable and desirable environment is being provided by the ward, and similarly we can limit the number of attendants and the visitors who are meeting with the patient, because at home the patient may be disturbed by the people, or there is a strong chance of getting infected if more number of people are going to come and visit the home. Whereas in a ward, since we are able to restrict this number, henceforth proper care can be given to the patient. Now, with this, we will come to like what is the regarding the creation of the hospital ward. So as I've already told you, like all the creation of the wards or the IPD services will depend on the hospital quality or the policy. Sorry. So the policy will depend on what is the type of hospital, like which is the area of speciality of the hospital, and secondly, like what is its bed strength. So usually speaking, as you all know, like hospitals can be categorized into various types in the order of their functioning. So first one is your general hospital, the second one is your specialty hospital or those hospitals which are giving specific type of services. Okay, for example, some hospital is giving only maternity, that is they are nursing homes. Some hospital are pediatric hospitals, some hospital are specialized only for your infectious diseases, and similarly we have got super specialty hospitals, okay, where you have got a pediatric oncology or pediatric neurology or gastroenterology. So so depending on the type of hospital and what type of care it is basically given. Similarly, depending on the size, if it is more, it is less than 200 beds, then usually the hospital goes for an horizontal expansion, and henceforth more area has to be covered. Whereas where it is more than 300 bedded hospital, a vertical expansion of the hospital can take place. Then in terms of the factors which affects the physical facilities of the wards, so the one of the most important thing is the location. Now why location is important? Because see, when you are admitting the patient and you want particular type of care, so you don't want the patient to be disturbed, hence so location is very important. So usually it has been seen that the hospitals have the wards at the back side of their locations. And why it is done? It's so as to avoid the traffic flow and the congestion. Okay. Similarly, the hospital ward is located in such a manner which have a direct access to the OPD, the emergency, and the OT. It should have a single door entrance, okay, to the ward complex so as to restrict the traffic and the visitors. And similarly, it should have a good intermural within the hospital. It should be having a good intramural transportation system so that the easy transportation can be taking place, hassle free transportation. And it should have like wide corridors, lifts, okay, so that everything is hassle free. As far as the size of the ward is concerned, it has been seen like usually 20 feet to 90 feet is the size of the ward, okay, depending on. So we'll just come to the demarcation. And the size of the ward will also depend on the type of patients you are treating within the hospital. For example, when you are treating the patient in a critical care unit, such as your such as your ICU or CCU or burns. Okay, so these hospitals have got small wards because constant attention is required to be given to the patient, and henceforth the maximum number of beds can be ranging from 20 to 30. When you are talking about those patients where frequent attention has to be given, so then the number has to be intermediate, and the number has to be around 40 to 50. Then when you are talking in terms of those hospitals which have a chronic long duration stay, okay, those two, for example, like a kidney patient, or for a replacement, then the size may be ranging from 70 to 90 beds. So these are the three categories of the hospital wards, depending on the number of beds. Similarly, it also will depend on the availability of the nursing and the other staff, the positioning of the nursing station, that is whether you will have a central position of the nursing station or you will have a lateral position. We'll come to this point in the upcoming slides. And then whether it's a closed or an open ward. Now depending on the you can see in this slide, like there's a diagram which is, and it basically comprises constituents of a ward, or a of a ward. So you will have a patient area. So you can see over here you have a patient area, you have got a nursing space, okay, and then you have a corridor, then you have got auxiliary area. Now what is an auxiliary area, what is a sanitary area, and what is a ancillary area, we will come to this point. But these are the important constituents of a basically of a ward. Then coming on to in terms of when you, like I told you, there's a patient housing area, okay, like when you, where you have all the patients. So the patient housing area may be divided into various cubicles as per the patient requirements. So if it is a single room bed, so usual the size of the room is 120 square feet area. Then if you have a double bed room, then the size of the room could be around 160 square feet area. If it is a four bedded, then it is around 320 square feet. Similarly, six bedded, it has to be around 400 square feet. And if it is an ICU bed room, okay, a room which has got an ICU bed, then it is around 125 to 150. So multiplied by the number of beds. So usually speaking, in the older times, it is a ward has been said to have an around 24 beds. Okay, so a ward will have around, generally speaking, it might have around 24 beds. So you need to divide, multiply, or you need to, sorry, multiply this area with the actually area consumed per bed, and the whole area can be calculated. Similarly, and in an open ward width has to be nearly 20 feet. So there you have to basically demarcate in terms of, bed area has to be around 70 feet, and then between the two beds, between the two rows, it has to be around 5 feet, and the space between the two beds is ranging from 3.5 to almost 4 feet. In some of the place in western countries, it can be also taken up to 6 feet. And similarly, the clearance of the bed from the wall, head from the wall has to be, and from the other bed can be from 1 feet to 2 feet. Similarly, the size of each bed is usually from 6.5 feet in length to 3.5 feet, 3.5 feet in width. So length into breadth is 6.5 into 3.5. So this is the usual calculation which is being taken when you calculate a ward area. Then I like I told you, there is an auxiliary area, there is sanitary area, there is an ancillary area. So when you talk about auxiliary area, so auxiliary area will comprise of a nursing station, there is a treatment room, there is a clean utility room, okay, and a clean linen store. Then you will have a pantry, you will have a unit store, and you will have a dining or a recreation room. Okay, similarly, when you there has to be a sanitary area, that is the bath and the toilet for the patient, and usually the ratio is one a toilet and bathroom for 5 beds. And there is a dirty utility room, and then you have basically your sanitation store, janitor room. So when you talk about a dirty utility room, it is basically where the sizzle linen, your bedpan, specimen stool, and linen wash, urine and blood can be kept. Whereas when you talk about a place which is basically a sanitation room, so there, yeah, there you can basically have the brooms, then the mops, the detergent for cleaning the ward has to be kept. Then there is a janitor room which is used for used brooms, for mops, buckets, and mugs has to be there, and there has to be a wash basin. So this is all regarding the sanitary area. When you talk about an ancillary room, now the ancillary room will comprise of the doctor's duty room, the sister which is in charge, and the attendance room. Similarly, you need to have a space or an area for the staff where which is called the changing room and the locker. Similarly, there is an area for a patient locker, there is a ward side lab where you can do the test, there has to be a seminar room, then there is an area for trolleys, okay, trolley bay, which is known as the trolley bay, and for the wheelchair, and the oxygen trolley oxygen cylinder. As far as the nursing area is concerned, now it is basically a minimum area for a nursing station is 20 by 20, okay, and there has to be a sister's changing room and a toilet. There has to be a space for the cupboard for the medicines. There is a hanging pocket for the forms and the case sheet and the case sheet racks where the forms have been kept, and there are tables, stools, and chairs. Similarly, you will also have a treatment room, and where the patient will come, and it is a place which is used basically for physical examination. There are equipment such as sphygmomanometer, BP apparatus, this thermometer. There's a dressing trolley, there is a washing facility area, and there's an examination couch and a spotlight. So these are the various demarcations of the auxiliary, sanitary, and the ancillary area. Similarly, you will require electricity and water supply, and the water supply basically is for, you require around 300 liters per bed. This is usually the ratio, 300 liters per bed it is being required. There are glare free lights has to be there. It should not be very much constraining to the eyes. That's why we need to have a glare free lights. Then there's a fact suction, there are gas pipeline connection, air condition, cooler. So all these things are there as far as the electricity and the water supply is there. Similarly, thus as far as the staffing is concerned, the staffing will depend again on the size of the ward and the criticality of the patient. For example, you will require in a ward, you will require a specialist, that is one per 100 beds you will require a specialist. Then there has to be a GDMO, which is around again one per 12 beds. Then you need to have a senior residence again, which is one per 12 beds. You require a junior resident. So these are all doctors. Okay, so four categories. Also there are basically four doctors, again a junior resident per 4 beds. So if the number of beds is more, so if there are suppose 24 beds, then you require 6 junior residents. Okay, where they will give duty round the clock, based on 8 hours or 10 hours whatsoever it is. Similarly, you will also in the staffing you will require a staff nurse. As far as the staff nurse is concerned, again it is basically your one staff nurse is required. Okay, per 6 beds for a general one, and or the bed critical area. And if it is a teaching hospital, then you require one per 4 beds teaching, for a teaching hospital. Similarly, sister in charge ANS has to be, sister in charge has to be 2, ANS has to be 1, and group D staff you require is 1 per 2 beds. So this is the whole staffing process of the ward. Then we will come to the ward designing factors. As far as the ward designing factors, the main objective of designing is to facilitate the nursing staff to so that they can observe each patient and keep a watch on them. Okay, so based on this, designing is of the wards are in two categories. One is an open ward. Open ward is also known as Florence Nightingale ward, whereas the closed ward is known as a rigged ward, which can be both unilateral as well as bilateral. So we'll come to this point. But then, as far as the designing factors is concerned, as you can see from the slide, the number of beds that I have already told you, the bed spacing, the position of the nursing station, whether it is a T-shaped or an L-shaped. Okay, we'll come to this point. And then the category of the wards, which whether it's a specialized or a general hospital, or it is a multi-speciality, so it depends on the category of the ward. And then the ancillary rooms and the ratio of the toilet accommodation will comprise of the designing factors. Then as far as now the designing of the wards, I told you, like, in a Florence Nightingale ward, which is also known as open, the beds are either surrounding the nursing station or on either side, you can see. Okay, so basically this Florence Nightingale, it can, when you are talking about a rigged pattern ward, it is unilateral or it is bilateral. Okay, then there are T-shaped ward, there is L-shaped ward, and there is a cruciform types of ward. So when you talk about a Florence Nightingale ward, now a Florence Nightingale ward, the beds are either surrounding like the nursing station or on either side. Then similarly in a Florence Nightingale, the toilets are at the other end and the duty and the treatment room are at the other end. So both are divided into different areas. Similarly, for the advantage, as far the advantages are concerned of a Nightingale ward, it has got a good visibility, it has got a better ventilation, then it has got economically benefits because it is easier to construct. Okay, and there is a good possibility of ventilation, like I said. As far as the disadvantages are concerned, so you can see from the slide like how is the ward like. And if there are as far as the disadvantages are concerned, it is the noisiest type of a ward, and there is no privacy for the patient. The space between the beds is reduced, there is an obstruction in the flow of the trolley, and that there is always a chances for cross infection, and it basically also causes fatigue of the nurses. Okay, now as far as your rigged beds are concerned, so here, okay, so we have already discussed these points. Now as far as the rig ward is concerned, it is separated by a low partitions which is so that it can be divided into various cubicles. So you can see over here. Okay, so there is cubicle, so 4 beds on one side, it is divided, and 4 on another side. Again, on the opposite side, 4 on one side, 4 on another. So total 4 4 4 4, making a total of 16 beds on one side and 16 beds on the other side, so making a total of 32 beds. Okay, so they have got different cubicles of maybe 4 beds or 6 beds, and these beds may be on one side or the other side of the nursing station. So you see there is a nursing station in between, and on both the sides there are patients. Okay, patient, so there, it is a ward. Similarly, the beds can also be arranged in X fashion. Okay, so when you arrange that thing in X fashion, this is known as cruciform. Here you see, so it is like this and it is like this, so it is a cruciform type of a arrangement. And it can be also arranged in Z pattern. So the disadvantages in such a case is the communication between the nurse and the patient is going to hamper. Okay, and similarly the other aspect is, like, there is a direct observation is not possible, the wards may become longer and more staff is required. So this is in totally now we'll come to the accommodation. As far as the accommodation, I've already told you there is an ancillary accommodation. What are the parts of the ancillary? We have already discussed. Sanitary, accommodation, primary, so we have already discussed. So ancillary, like I told you, it is basically a service for the direct support of the treatment, whether you have a portable x-ray or a pantry or a dietitian service or a mobile pharmacy. So this is a part of the ancillary. As far as the auxiliary is concerned, I've told you there's a store, there's a housekeeping, there's a doctor's room, there's a sister in charge room, there's an attendant room, as well as seminar room. Sanitary will comprise of the bathroom and the other spaces, and 1:5 ratio has to be maintained. And primary accommodation is basically consist of one bedroom or multiple bedroom for the patient as well as the nursing station. Then, what are the various things that should be considered while designing different types of wards. So we need to see whether, there has to be a healthy environment, and there has to be pediatric or psychiatric ward safety. When there's a when you're talking about a pediatric ward or a psychiatric ward, then the safety is of utmost importance. Similarly, for a geriatric, safety and comfort are very important. For an obstetric point of view, privacy is very important. From an ICU point of view, the nursing care is very important. And from an OT point of view, infection control is very, very important. So these are the various criterias. Then as far as the hygienic requirement, original temperature in the ward should be around 18 to 20 degrees. Then you need to wipe the all the floors, so that the actually it should be feeling good feel factor for the patient. It should not be dirty. Then, as far as from the CSSD department, the infection department needs to overview it again and again. Morning wiping has to be there till 9 a.m. and ventilation of wards not less than 4 times a day should be done. Similarly, when you come onto the wards, the appearance of the doctors and everything has to be maintained properly. And like, the disinfectants and when you then the doctors come in order to see the patient, then they need to follow a particular decorum. Similarly, there are two types of transfer. One is the within the hospital, and from the hospital to the, so all these things can be done from the wards itself. And in order to do the transfer, basically one needs to verify from the physician, then it has to go to the admitting officer, okay, who has to arrange for the transfer. It has to be communicated to determine the best time for the transferring the client. And then you have to identify the patient, you have to inform the patient, you have to gather all the equipment, because I told you there is a patient locker room, you get all the devices from there. Then you maintain the record, you obtain the necessary staff assistance, and then you transfer the patient to the wheelchair. Okay, and then you use protective belts and rails, and you cover the patient so as to provide warmth and avoid unnecessary exposure. Okay, Then, from a ward point of view, day-to-day management of the inpatient services is again, has to be done at two levels, at the doctor's level and at the nursing level. As far as the level is concerned, like I told you, all the implementation of the hospital policies is the responsibility of the doctor in charge, whereas the sister in charge is responsible for the overall ward management and interdepartmental coordination, which I just told you in this. So what is the objective of ward management in general? It is the optimal utilization of the ward resources so as to produce maximum output with comfort and full satisfaction of the patient. Therefore it has there, you have to need to maintain tangible objectives. Okay, and it is a teamwork, mind you, it is a teamwork, it is not a one person's game. Okay, so it's a team function which is combining the efforts of the doctor, the nurses, the paramedical staff, the support staff to maintain continuous, efficient and effective care through personal experience, training and advancement. Then, what are the various issues in practically when we say in ward management? What are the various issues that can be raised? So it is the knowledge of the ward duties. Okay, so it's an organizational function. Then there has to be absolute discipline. There should be a planning of daily work schedule and policy. The work has to be started in time. Then the doctor's orders has to be ready. The for the orders for the nurses has to be clearly guided. Okay, then there has to be planning for the logistics, especially when the patient is transferring to the other department or to at home. Then there has to be a establishment of the ward routine, for example, how the night reporting is being done, how the handling taking report has been done, how the specimen collection report is being done. What about the nursing care, about the temperature recording, about the teaching and the supervision, the orientation of the nursing staff, and planning and preparation for the operations. So there's a wide range of managerial issues which are very important. Similarly, on the other aspect, there has to be a provision of the supplies so that there is adequate storage of the equipment, the drugs. You have to check the misuse, and you need to check the waste, you need to check the indent, okay, the receipt, the economic use, and you need to maintain the environment so that the environment is private. It has to avoid noise, the light, temperature, everything has to be maintained properly. So these are all managerial issues. Similarly, as far as the record maintenance of the patient is concerned, the patient card, the patient record, the chart, the intent, the stock book, the maintenance and repair, breakage, loss, condemnation report books, everything has to be crystal clear. Similarly, while reporting, you have to report all the complaints and everything to the higher authorities, both in evening and as well as in night. Report has to be there. So a proper duty assignment to the staff, it has to be there. It has to be clearly communicated. Okay, good working of the team has to be there, and there has to be a team spirit. And always the seniors should teach their juniors, and continuous monitoring and evaluation has to be done. As far as the ward sister is concerned, her role is very important, because she is ensuring good nursing care, she is implementing the doctor's advice, she is basically supervising and guiding the other staff, she is housekeeping as well as taking care of the sanitation and the diets as an overall manager to oversee the things. Then there's a constant monitoring of the ward function, and orientation and direction of the ward staff again is a responsibility of the ward sister. So based on this, as we come to the other chapters of ward management, we will be discussing more about the management aspect in terms of what are the various management methods in the next class. Thank you so much for your patient listening, and do write to us on the email below if you have any queries, and we will meet you soon with the second chapter. Thank you so much.